So this is definitely different from Mr. Hale, this role you're taking on, right?
You're right. Yes, this time I got a chance to grow my beard out. Took me about 4 months to get a little action there on my face. It's a fun one. It's a fun one. It's an incredible true story. I had the pleasure of getting to portray the man Doc. You know, this is a story about George Martin, a prison boxer portrayed by Banga Akinabe. And it's a story about this boxer was so incredible that they would bring in pros to fight him, and he would knock him out. So finally, the governor of Tennessee came down to George and he said, "George, we're going to pardon you, and we're going to get you out of prison to go fight for the USA in the 1984 Olympics." But George Martin turned him down. And the reason why he turned him down will knock your socks off, man. It's talk about progressive. This was 35 years ago in Tennessee in 1984, and what George does is utterly incredible, and I can't wait for people to see this film.
And I love how much boxing films are so inspirational for almost all of us, because every boxing film out there, from Hurricane to Ali to all of them, just kind of have this uplifting part to them, which I think is interesting. But you deal with in this film commitment, friendship, faith, all that stuff. What do you want viewers at the end of the day, Jackson, to take out of this film?
Well, I want them to really kind of see what life was like in 1984 for these prisoners, and how, you know, redemption and hope are some of these values that, you know, in 1984 they were important, and they're just as important today. And how really it's about forgiving ourselves, and in order to move forward and to embrace the future is to acknowledge the past.
And Jackson, you are having a pretty big year. You're taking on this really interesting new role, and you're celebrating 10 years since Twilight. So how did you guys celebrate?
Well, we just did the New York Comic-Con here. It was amazing. All the fans showed up in droves. It was quite an amazing experience. We're kind of wondering, you know, are the fans going to be still passionate about Twilight here 10 years later? But they came out, and it was wonderful to see them. We had Catherine Hardwicke, Eddie Gathegi, and my good pal Kellen Lutz on the panel, and it was really amazing kind of talking about what Catherine Hardwicke was able to accomplish 10 years ago with this film series. You know, this was a modestly budgeted indie film that blew up. You know, we were hoping to maybe make back, you know, 39 million on opening day, and then it came in at 69 million, and then the next month it was 400, and then soon it became a global phenomenon.
Oh yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon. I mean, people are still obsessed with it to this day, Jackson. Why do you feel like the Twilight movies resonated so well with people?
Well, you know, I really believe it was due to the fact that this is a story written by Stephanie Meyer with a strong female protagonist portrayed by Kristen Stewart, with an incredible script by Melissa Rosenberg and directed by Catherine Hardwicke. This is a female all-star team that really kind of showed people 10 years ago, if you let women be in charge, they will take over, and they will do an amazing job at it. And nowadays we have Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman. We have these films that are just so empowering and so incredible, and such incredible stories. And for me to be a part of Twilight 10 years ago is an honor.
And obviously you're a busy man, but let's say you had some space free up in your calendar, right? And they said, look, we'll shift some things around to allow for a 5th installment of Twilight. Would you be on board, Jackson? And also, what would you want to see in the film?
You know, one thing that we weren't able to fully explore within the books was these characters' backstories. So I don't know necessarily if I keep going into the future with these stories. I think Stephanie Meyer had a wonderful endpoint. But I'd be really interested to see kind of some prequels, you know, how Jasper met Alice, how Carlisle rounded up this kind of nomad group of vampires and became the Cullen family. I think there's a lot of interest there. There's some intriguing aspects. We got to see a little bit of the backstory with Jasper and Twilight Eclipse in the Civil War, but we didn't get to see how he met the love of his life and how she saved him from a life of just being a fairly ferocious vampire.
Right. All right, so Jackson, that's all the acting. You're a busy guy. You also sing as well. I don't even know where you find time for all this stuff. You have a new single out called Young and Tragic. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Young and Tragic is a song that I started writing when I was about 27 years old, when I met my wife. And it was kind of about giving up the rock and roll lifestyle and really, you know, kind of focusing on self-care. Because that's one thing, you know, nowadays there's an epidemic of binge drinking among you know, late 20s, early 30s. And, you know, I found myself kind of in the midst of it, you know, rock and roll, partying, hanging out, and it's kind of glamorized a lot. And so I wanted to write a song that really kind of talked about how I don't want to fall victim to being one of these young and tragic individuals, and kind of a story that I could tell myself and give myself a sense of there's a stronger life out there. There's a way to be, you know, hold your head up and speak clearly and you know, not fall victim to the trappings of you know, the rock and roll lifestyle.
Right, and you get to tell us a couple stories that we're probably going to hear on your first solo album, American Spirit Blues, dropping this month. So what can we expect to hear on this album?
Well, it's an Americana record. It's kind of an homage to the music I grew up listening to, like Cat Stevens, Paul Simon. And I got some local Austin-based musicians to come on board and play. We actually recorded at Twin Creek Studios in Austin, Texas, with the producer James Jones, who I actually know from high school from Midland, Texas. It's kind of it's coming back to my roots as a Southerner and as a Texan. And on the record, you'll hear me play some guitar, banjo, mandolin, a little bit of accordion, and
wow.
some harmonica. And it's a really fun record. It's really about the American spirit and kind of, you know, moving forward, even as we acknowledge the past. You know, this is a record that I kind of essentially wrote with my younger self. Some old songs that I updated.
All right, Jackson, before we let you go, where can people see Heart Baby?
Heart Baby is coming to theaters November 16th in New York, November 23rd in Los Angeles, and then it's going to be coming across the nation, and then it'll be dropping on VOD. So you know, stay tuned to my social pages at Jackson Rathbone, and I'll be keeping you all up to date. And I really hope you guys come out and see this film. It's an incredible true story, and it's something that you're all going to talk about.
You got our attention.
Right, totally. Jackson Rathbone, a busy man, actor, musician, a lot going on. Jackson, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, thank you all for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course.